This is my love language. Just kind of sad we've gotten to that point, huh? Just when a game is actually like a truly physical game, that's when it's just like, oh boy! This is something I wanted to talk about for a bit, especially in recent years, considering it seems like we are finally entering Armageddon. There's been a long battle between physical and digital media, and this isn't even exclusive to video games. I mean, you're seeing it with movies, music, all of that. And it does feel like each medium is kind of dealing with it in different ways. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't gone out of my way to buy a DVD or Blu-ray in a bit, you know, like I buy them sometimes, but you know, when it comes to like, oh, I'm interested in watching this movie, the first thing in my head is not, I'm gonna buy the Blu-ray. And I feel like a lot of casual consumers think the same way. Of course, there are loads of Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, hell, just DVD, just physical media collectors in general for film and TV, whatever. But every time I would go into Walmart, Target, Meijer, Best Buy, you know, I'd always see that movie section and like, nobody was looking through it. I think digital definitely won with movies. And it sucks to say because like now when I go through a lot of these stores and they got rid of their DVD section, I'm kind of like, wow, there's like this element of this store that I always just enjoyed looking at, even if I didn't buy much from it anymore. Like, it's gone now. Like, Best Buy announced they were done stocking physical movies. And yeah, sure enough, every time I go in there, there's nothing, which is pretty wild. I mean, you think of all the crap Best Buy stocks, like all the stuff you're like, who the hell would want this? Who's buying a fucking fridge from Best Buy? And if they're going like, we are done stocking physical media like that must have mean like, wow, like sales must have been piss bad. It's just not very common to find physical media like that in stores anymore. Now, music is kind of in a weird place where it's just like, yeah, everybody just listens to music on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, all of that. But I do see physical media kind of just blossoming with music again. People do like collecting their music on vinyl. Hell, CDs are kind of coming back. I feel like for general consumers, there's something where music means a lot to them. Movies almost seem like it's just kind of like a way to spend that night. It's almost just like, hey, you want to see a movie? Sure. Music is a little more like, people are a little more passionate about their music in general, it seems to me. I think the thing is, like, a lot of people, they only watch a movie once, even if they really like it. They're like, I saw that once, I loved it. Music, a lot of people listen to their favorite songs, like, over and over and over for their entire lifetime. So that makes sense, but now we're on to video games. Physical video games, and this has kind of been the holdout for a while now. I think a couple of things kind of delayed digital Armageddon for games systems. For one, video games are piss big, 50 plus gigabytes for a lot of these things, especially starting with the PS4 era. So if you were going to download those things, it was gonna take a second and then you couldn't sell your game afterwards. And that's just been kind of like a core part of video games for decades now. The idea that like, all right, when I'm done with my game, I can trade it in at GameStop. But as time has gone on, people's internet speeds are getting faster. The consoles themselves are getting faster, which means download times, while they're still dumb, they're definitely a lot more manageable now. And I think overall, the convenience of just having a game just on your console, you don't have to find the disc, you don't have to put the disc in a safe spot, you don't have to worry about any of that. You can just turn on your console, select your game, and go. And on top of the fact that a lot of the games that people are playing these days are online only to begin with, they're just online multiplayer games, so why even bother getting a disc for that? And especially for consoles like the Switch, where it's portable, and it's very nice to have all of your games just on here, ready to go whenever you want. And to buy these games, you don't have to get up off the couch, you don't have to move over to Amazon, you don't have to drive over to Best Buy. You can just sit down, you can be like, I want to play this game, and you just buy it right there, and you wait for it to download. Yeah, you do have to wait, but there, boom, it's on your system, ready to go, and then you can play it. So I think as time has gone on, this mindset has started to creep into video games. And it got to the point where, like, whenever, like, Sony would talk about their financial report, they would start to say, like, yeah, digital is overcoming physical sales. It's at the point where, like, yeah, digital is king. Most people will just download their game. They don't care. But what about the people who do care? What about the people who want physical games? Guess what? They're told to suck it up. Ugh, but these companies still want to put out physical products, but these physical products are not physical products. They are so dependent on an internet connection. Many of them don't even have anything on the disc or cartridge. They just call to the server and they just download crap to your system. Case in point. Okay, but before we get into that, here's somebody who paid us.
Hey, what's your social security number? Asking for a friend.
Is that friend the World Wide Web? Because no thank you. I have Incogni. Thank God Incogni paid me to say that. No matter how careful you are online, your personal data can easily find its way into the wrong hands. Companies will sell it. No matter what, you will always find yourself back on those sketchy websites with your personal info, your addresses, your phone numbers, ripe for the picking. That's where Incogni comes in to help out. They will consistently scour the internet for your personal info and work to take it down without you having to do anything. I value my privacy and personal info a lot. So Incogni really helps me sleep at night, which says a lot because I have insomnia. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Use code STASH at the link below to get 60% off an annual plan. Let's talk about how we got to this mess. Firstly, I want to talk about Microsoft right over here because Microsoft is definitely the most digital-centric of the main three console guys. And I mean, you can see traces of that ever since the very start. I mean, like, they really went all in on something like Xbox Live Arcade, but it took a while for them to really, like, embrace digital games. I believe at the time they were called games on demand when you could buy full retail Xbox 360 games through Xbox Live Marketplace. And then when the Xbox One was revealed, you know, that whole controversy hit where, oh, the console has to be online. You can't trade in your games or lend them to friends. Once you use your game, once you insert the disc on your Xbox One, the license to use that game is locked to your console, or at least like your Xbox Live gamer tag or whatever. And that was such an unpopular thing that was proposed there, especially in 2013, that they had to roll things back, and the Xbox One launched as a pretty basic console at that point. However, over the years, it's obvious that Microsoft found a way to do exactly what they always wanted to do. I think because they masqueraded this whole thing as a deal. Because we got Xbox Game Pass, and for a while their Game Pass was like, oh wow, this is a no-brainer. This is a great deal. You have access to all these games. You don't stream them or anything, because at the time that Xbox Game Pass released, and even these days, game streaming, it ain't that amazing. Even the best form of game streaming, like, it just, there's something about it that doesn't feel exactly right. So Game Pass came in and was like, hey, you can download the games directly to your system. You're not streaming them. And eventually they said, like, hey, every Microsoft published game from here on out is going to debut on Game Pass. You're going to be able to download day one Xbox first-party games on Game Pass, and they made a bunch of deals with all these other publishers to the point that, like, yeah, stuff like Persona 3 Reload, that was available on Game Pass day one. You know, it just kind of became second nature for a lot of Xbox owners that, like, hey, Game Pass makes the most sense. This way I don't have to outright buy all these games. You know, I can just get all my Xbox first-party games, you know, day one. I don't have to think about it. I have access to them. But see, that's the kicker, because ever since Game Pass started to kind of get built up as like the main hook of the Xbox brand, Xbox's physical releases started becoming less and less frequent, and when they would do them, they were absolutely worthless. Last major, like, physical AAA game I remember Microsoft putting out was Gears 5 in 2019. And then 2020, Microsoft basically just kind of like took a fucking nap that whole year. And then in 2021, we got Halo Infinite. And Halo Infinite launched day one on Game Pass, and also, like, you know, the multiplayer was free to play. So I don't even think I've ever seen anybody physically hold a copy of Halo Infinite. But physical releases did go out, and there's basically nothing on the disc. Well, I mean, there's practically nothing. You have to connect online to do anything with Halo Infinite physically. And it kind of feels like from that point forward, physical Microsoft games are just kind of not a thing. Games like Avowed, digital only. I mean, it launched day one on Game Pass, so it's just like, they're probably just like, yeah, just subscribe to Game Pass. But if you really want to own it, just, you know, get it digitally. The Outer Worlds 2, no Xbox physical, But ever since Microsoft started going multi-platform and publishing their games on PlayStation 5, they do physical PlayStation 5 games, which is weird as hell. But even when they do physical games, you know, this kind of started with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. That did get a physical release on Xbox Series X. However, both the Xbox and PS5 versions of that game physically require an internet download. Sure, there's like 15 gigs or something on the disc, but one, you can't play them, and two, 15 gigabytes is fucking nothing these days. Sure, you can look at it like, oh, well, I'll be saving 15 gigabytes on my console, whatever. Is that really worth it at this point? You're spending $70 damn on a physical copy of Indiana Jones, and it takes up practically the same amount of space as digitally downloading it, which at that point, I mean, if you don't have Game Pass, just sign up for 1 month of Game Pass, play Indiana Jones, and then just fuck off. Forza Horizon 5 released on PS5, and they didn't even bother with a physical release. And this mantra extends to all the studios that Microsoft had bought throughout the past couple of years. So, like, there really isn't much physical Bethesda stuff coming out. The Oblivion remake? Yeah, that's not physical. And you know why they're doing this? Because Microsoft does not sell any physical games, because they basically train their consumers to not give a damn about them. And it sucks because honestly, like, I don't even think Game Pass is that insane of a deal anymore. Game Pass being a great deal back in like 2018 or so, really kind of trained people to play primarily digital games on their Xbox consoles. And then with all your Xbox exclusives coming out pretty much day one on Game Pass, made it then it's just like, okay, well, why would I buy a physical copy of Gears 5? Why would I buy a physical copy of Halo Infinite? There's no reason to. Especially when those same physical copies require an internet download. Yes, of course, you're gonna have to install the game, but I don't want to be at the mercy of an internet connection when I buy a physical copy of a game. It kind of helps out the balance here, you know? Okay, digital, you need an internet connection, you need a lot more space on your console, but it's more convenient. Physical, oh, I don't need an internet connection, and I actually own the physical copy of the game. I can trade it in, I can do whatever I want with it. You know, I think they balance each other out fairly well, but then you force an internet connection, you force a download, and at that point, it's just like, yeah, what do I actually own here? What is the point of owning these physical games outside of just, oh, they look cute on the shelf? I'm gonna be honest, the reason why I get my games isn't because they look cute on the shelf. All right, who the fuck am I kidding? Okay, that may be an element, but that's not the only reason why I want physical games. That's kind of like a nice little bonus, in addition to the fact that it's just like, yeah, like, that's the game right there. I own it. When you don't have that and you basically just have a plastic box with a worthless disc in the inside, or even worse, a digital code you redeem, I mean, that just kind of devalues it sitting on my shelf tremendously at that point. Why do I own this, you know? What's the purpose of this? There's no value to this. There's no core memories I have of this game box. You know, when it's a physical game like this, you know, like, you're gonna open it up multiple times, close it, open it, close it, you know, take the game out, put it in, take it out, put it in. So when I own the physical game and everything's on the damn cartridge and all of that, it has way more value sitting on my shelf. For some reason, these publishers just decide to do these internet download kind of things with their physical copies, thinking like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. The physical people, all they want is just something to hold. No, I want something to hold that has value. Not because I care about, oh, the value of all this stuff. Oh, how much does it cost? No. I want something that actually means something when I'm holding it. I don't like Cyberpunk on Switch 2 because, like, oh, that looks nice. Oh, cute. Like, no, this is all great, but that's just kind of the cherry on top. I like this because, like, this is the game. I'm holding the game. I'm holding something of value here. We look at something like the fucking Just Dance 2023 on Switch that just contains a digital code. Like, I'm holding nothing here. There's nothing of value here. I'm literally holding a worthless piece of plastic. That's how I view a lot of these digital hybrid physical games. Which that brings us to what's going on with Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch 2. And it really sucks because the Nintendo Switch 2 is a great piece of hardware so far. You know, this is pretty early on in the generation, but early signs is that this is a great upgrade from the Nintendo Switch 1. However, there's been a big problem with the physical games on Nintendo Switch 2. and it all boils down to those ghastly game key cards. Now, it must be known, I understand why these exist. The Nintendo Switch 1 to the Nintendo Switch 2, it's basically kind of like a PS3 to PS4 slash 4.5 PlayStation 5 jump. Look at the game sizes on the PS3 compared to the PS4 and PS5. Like, it's peanuts compared to how big games started to get from the PS4 onwards. So the Nintendo Switch 1, you could fit a majority of the games that released on that console on the physical game cartridge, which these game cartridges are more expensive to produce than Blu-ray discs. There's more that goes into manufacturing them. They're also a proprietary game cartridge, so they aren't like the standard thing that Nintendo can buy from somebody. No, like they have to produce their own game cards. It's not like Blu-ray discs, which are a standard across video games, movies, you know, like it's way cheaper to produce a game on a Blu-ray disc than it is to produce a game on a physical Nintendo Switch cartridge. But back on the Nintendo Switch 1, Nintendo offered a variety of game cartridge sizes for publishers to pick from. So then if your game is a very tiny game, you could buy like a 1 gigabyte cartridge. If your game is massive, you had the 32 gigabyte cartridge choice, which some publishers still decided not to opt for. Something like Grand Theft Auto Trilogy. You know, very cool this happened physically, but the only game included on the cartridge is GTA 3. The other games, they do have this little notice on the bottom that says download required. On the back, they say at least 9 gigabytes. So that's probably saying like, yeah, you need, you know, if you want to download the rest of this, at least Vice City is going to be 9. I think San Andreas is like a 15 gigabyte game. So, I mean, like if we add it up, I'm sure they probably could have squeezed the entirety of the trilogy on a 32 gigabyte cartridge. But the margins on that are definitely a little lower than probably what they'd want. You're not making as much money as you would selling this, which is probably on a smaller game cartridge with just GTA 3 on it, that you would if they went for, oh, let's put everything physically on one game cartridge. A lot of these publishers, they don't really care about that. But at the very least, one of the games is on the cartridge in its entirety, so that's something. Still definitely annoying, but this was kind of a bit of a problem with some of the larger multi-platform games throughout the Nintendo Switch's lifespan. And you know what sucks is that this is the core problem of physical games on the Nintendo Switch 2. Because game sizes are so damn big, Nintendo offers the game key card because realistically, some games may end up being like 70 gigabytes when it's all said and done. And it's probably just not financially feasible for Nintendo to produce like a 128 gigabyte game card or something. So reports came out that Nintendo produced one game card size, 64 gigabytes. You have that as an option, and you have a game key card as an option. So basically, either you pay out the ass for a 64 gigabyte game cartridge as a publisher, which I think the report said one 64 gig game card would cost $16, which is taking a decent chunk of change out of the profit you would normally make from a physical Switch 2 game. Or you could just get a game key card, which has nothing on the game cartridge. The thing is, Nintendo kind of standardized how these physical games look and run and all of that. So you have like 3 different types of physical Nintendo Switch 2 games. You have the standard ones, this, Mario Kart World, where it's all on the cartridge. It's just a standard physical game. You have the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games, which were originally rumored to be kind of like, oh, it's just the Switch 1 game cartridge with a download code included, which includes like the upgrade, the Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade pack. I mean, that makes the most sense, doesn't it? As lame as that is, it makes sense. But no, it turns out these game cartridges are almost like those old school Game Boy Color game cartridges. This right here, the black Game Boy cartridge, is a Game Boy Color game, but it also will work on the original Game Boy, just without any of the Game Boy Color features, enhancements, all of that stuff. Whereas this translucent one with the convex top, this is just a Game Boy Color exclusive game, which is weird because I don't really think they made that obvious to consumers. Like, did you know that? And like, I'm pointing at you like, oh yeah, you wouldn't know. Like, yeah, okay, if you're listening to me babble about this kind of bullshit, you probably already know that. However, like, did people in the 90s really know that? I mean, like, these are 2 Game Boy Color games. Did you know this one also works on Game Boy? How would you know? There's nothing that says it. You gotta go to the back and it says like, oh, it's compatible with Game Boy. But then this one, yeah, it does have a little like banner that says only for Game Boy Color. But like, seriously? Like, how did you know this worked on Game Boy without reading the back? So the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games are kind of like the new school version of these like Game Boy Color cartridges, where it's just like, oh yeah, they work on both, which is cool, but like nothing really indicates to me that that's the case on like the packaging and everything. So I just think that's weird, but okay, cool. Good for Nintendo. That's another like completely physical game. Except when it's not. And then there are the game key cards, which made up the vast majority of third-party games available on Switch 2. These range from games that I think are absolutely absurd that they're game key cards, like something like Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. Seeing that as a game key card honestly made me wince. I'm like, what are we doing here? But it made sense when the report came out that there's only one game cartridge size. So yeah, if you're putting out Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S and it's a 2 GB game and there's only one game cartridge you could buy to put the game physically on a game cartridge and it's 64 damn gigabytes, what do you expect? But then another report came out that third parties we're not selling a ton of games on Switch 2 around launch, and I wonder why. Honestly, I'm not really sure if the game key cards had like everything to do with that, but at the very least for me, yeah, I don't want to buy any of these damn game key cards. If I'm gonna play any of those third-party games, I'd rather just download them digitally. Yes, a game key card, like, it does function very similarly to a regular physical game. All you gotta do is just download it. But honestly, even though the Switch 2 has 256 gigs of internal storage, with the giant increase in game sizes, it almost still feels like we're stuck at 32 gigabytes of internal storage from the Switch 1, because this stuff fills up so damn quickly that it just made me really wish a lot of these games were physical games, because I don't want to manage all of this storage space. I don't want to deal with it. But even if I buy something like Street Fighter 6 physically, I still have to download the whole ass game. So at that point, buying that game physically, the only thing I'm really getting is the ability to sell it and the fact that I can put it up on my shelf. And I don't really think those two things are worth it at all, because I'm not inherently opposed to buying digital games. I don't mind it. Hell, I do find it very convenient. I think it is very nice to have like some of the games that I like the most as digital downloads on my Switch or on any of my consoles. If I'm really, really excited for a game, I'll often buy the digital version just so I can just immediately play it at midnight. And then later down the line, I'll probably pick up the physical, usually on sale. But most of the time, like, if I'm just buying a game and I want to try it out, I'm gonna buy it physically. And like I said, a physical game to me really needs to like have some value to it inherently. And again, I'm not talking monetarily. I'm talking like there is value to what I'm holding. And a game key card, I don't consider that to be valuable. I just find that to be more of a nuisance for me. Like, oh, I have to download the whole game, and yet I still have to get up off my ass every time, get the game off my shelf, and pop it in my system. I don't want to do that. Might as well just buy it digitally at that point. It does seem like Sony is kind of the last major hope for physical media, but even then, like, they're just kind of the only one that isn't doing Dumbo baby bullshit. But it's not that they're opposed to it. Here I have Assassin's Creed Shadows. Pretty much all Ubisoft games at this point. Looky here. Internet's required to install the game. F off. When I got my Switch 2 at midnight, I brought it back to the Airbnb I was staying at. And it was the Mario Kart World digital download bundle, where when you logged onto the eShop, it would tell you like, hey, we detected that this Switch 2 has a full game download ready for you for Mario Kart World. And I tried downloading it, and it's just like, oh wait, you can't play this game yet. It hadn't released, and it's on some other time zone bullshit. I'm just like, come on! Like, yes, a lot of this stuff is just a one-time thing. It doesn't matter. Oh, you need internet to install the game. Okay, well, I have internet right now, and I'm installing the game, and I only have to install the game once, whatever. But still, stuff can go wrong. And even though a company like Sony is still like putting out physical games, and you know, it's obvious that physical games do sell okay on PlayStation 5. That's why Microsoft reluctantly puts out physical games on PS5, even though they aren't true physical games, but whatever. At the same time, you look at something like the PlayStation 5 Pro. That has no physical game version. You have to go out of your way to buy the external disk drive attachment for the PS5 Pro. And you know what really stinks about that? The PS5 Pro requires an internet connection to properly install the disk drive. Buddy. Now, they do that to ensure, like, you're not doing any kind of bootleg piracy, something, whatever. Like, okay, I understand, but come on. Why do I need an internet connection to install a disk drive? That's just the world we live in. Everything requires an internet connection these days. And that's all fine and good until they decide to drop support of all this crap like it's some dirty ass hat. Now, of course, I do think with products from the big three, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, I don't really think there's a ton to worry about with them in terms of like, oh, wow, well, this is completely useless now. I think it's going to take years and years and years, like probably a decade plus, for stuff to start happening. But I mean, like, that doesn't make it any less kind of like, oh man, that's a little concerning. But a lot of products that I've taken a look at throughout the years, you know, like I opened up like an Amazon Fire TV, and yeah, that barely fucking worked anymore. A lot of older products, let's say they released in like 2014, around that era, if they required a smartphone or something to operate, many of those products just don't work anymore. You can't operate them. They don't work. And while I think these big three game companies are at least pretty dedicated to like making sure like, okay, like we're gonna make sure like you can use this stuff until it's genuinely like super obsolete. I mean, we're gonna give you a warning like, hey, we're gonna shut down the marketplace, we're gonna shut down online servers, all that stuff. But at least for the things that a lot of these companies have started to shut down, there's usually kind of a loophole to still play a lot of this stuff. Yeah, Microsoft shut down the Xbox 360 store, but a vast majority of the stuff that I care about from that store made the jump over to the current Xbox store. And most Xbox 360 games, they don't require an internet connection. They don't require any kind of like internet download or anything. So when the Xbox 360 store shut down, it's kind of like, that kind of sucks. But it's also like, yeah, when was the last time I bought something from here? For these current generations, it's genuinely pretty concerning what the future lies for these things. I mean, so many games are so dependent on an online connection that you saw what happened with Concord. Sony just shut that down after like a week, and it's online only. You can't play it. Even though physical copies went out for that game, they don't work. So for a lot of this stuff, I'm genuinely kind of concerned that like a lot of these games just aren't going to be playable in like 20 years unless these companies or whoever owns these IPs decide to do like a full-blown re-release or something. But here's the thing with physical media, okay? Xbox is completely out. I don't think Xbox is going to be doing physical media for much longer at all. Nintendo with the Nintendo Switch 2, I don't think they're necessarily trying to get rid of physical. I think the game key cards are kind of just like, they have to do that because games are so big these days. Nintendo themselves are committed to putting out their main games on physical cartridges without any downloads necessary or anything. Sony is definitely a lot more up in the air. I wouldn't be shocked if their next console was digital only, but I also wouldn't be shocked if it did. I'm kind of 50-50 on the future of PlayStation, but at least like in the next 20 years, it does kind of feel like we're not really going to be seeing a lot of physical video games anymore. And that really damn stinks. That doesn't mean I'm gonna stop playing video games or anything like that, but I do find physical video games are just really special. I've genuinely grown into the person I am today because of physical video games. That's embarrassing. You know, I mean, like, that's always such a hobby of mine, to buy video games and to play them and to enjoy them and to just have a physical memento of like, yeah, I played this game. This was super cool. I can go through my collection and point it at people and be like, oh yeah, that game has this going on. And that game, I remember playing that. And this game, I beat that one. And this one, I couldn't do that. And I just don't really think that you really have the same experience at all doing that when all your games are digital downloads. I mean, like, I'll still do it, man, but it's also like, I don't know. As much as I've bought on the Switch and as many of these games are digital downloads, I do kind of feel like there isn't as much of an attachment to a digital download game, which is what these companies want. What happened with Concord is what all of these companies want to be able to do. They want to be able to control their products, and they want to be able to rip them from you whenever they want. If there's something wrong with the product or they got to recall it, it's so much easier to do that if it's a digital download than it is when it's a physical game. Because when these games are physical and everything's on the disc, when they go out to retailers, that's it. It's no longer the game company's property at that point. And they fucking hate that. By now, you've surely seen the thing of like, oh yeah, digital games, you don't technically own them, you're technically renting them. And when you're buying a digital game, all that money's going directly to the game company. It's not passing hands with Best Buy or Target or whatever. The game companies don't have to worry about trade-ins and used games and losing money on people buying used copies of their games. Don't gotta worry about any of that. But I honestly think a lot of these companies think in the short term in terms of like, oh man, we're losing money on this right now. We can't have this. When I think physical video games and buying used games and trading games and all of that, it's such an ingrained part of the video game experience. And I think that is the genuine way that you end up getting the most fans imaginable. There's a lot of games that I bought them used and I became a massive fan of those franchises to the point that like, yeah, I'm there day one when a new game comes out. Would I be there day one if I had to pay $70 for a brand new copy of a game in a franchise I've never tried before? And with prices going up so much, I think it's becoming harder and harder for people to kind of warrant buying a lot of these games. But you know what? Damn it, if I'm gonna get an actual physical release, I mean, I hate saying this stuff, but I will definitely say, like, if I actually get the actual fucking game on the cartridge, I'd be willing to pay a significant amount of money. Not too much, but you know, you have Street Fighter 6 on a game key card on Switch 2 for $60. If you charged $80 for that and everything was on the cartridge, yeah, I'd probably buy that. I like Street Fighter 6. I do that for a lot of these games. And if that's the solution moving forward, I would at least like the option. Because that feels like how things should be. I think a digital game should cost less. So if the digital game is gonna be $70, which, oh wow, oh, such savings. And the physical game is $80 or $90, that is absurd. But it's also like, okay, there's an actual reason to buy this over that. But for some reason, all of these game companies are like hell-bent on making digital and physical basically the exact same price, at least MSRP at launch. The physical copy of Cyberpunk is $70. The digital copy of Cyberpunk, get this, $70. In this, they have to take into account the game cartridge, which is $16. And they also included like stickers and a little note and everything. I mean, like, this stuff is pretty cheap overall, but it adds up. So obviously, business-wise, it's a lot better if you sell 1 million copies of the digital copy. So I think if these companies are so focused on making as much money as possible, just raise the damn price of the physical game. Because I really don't want these things to go away, even though as time goes on, it's becoming more and more evident that in a few years' time, we're going to be seeing less and less of these things. However, we have been seeing a lot more like physical-oriented video game companies pop up, and they are very committed to putting out physical copies of games that don't require downloads or anything like that. I know people got problems with limited run games, but you know, they're doing that. There's like premium edition games, Lost in Cult. You know, I do hope if a lot of these companies are like, we don't want to do physical games anymore, I do hope other companies step in and are like, well, we'll do physical games. But I think the problem with that is that it is a niche market. It is kind of like a boutique thing at this point to be like, oh yeah, I have a physical copy of Persona 4 Golden on my Nintendo Switch. Because, you know, Atlas wasn't interested in publishing the game themselves. They had to go through limited run for that. But the fact these things are kind of becoming like, oh, if you know, you know, there's a physical copy available here, so go to this website during this time period and buy it here. You know, like, it's just if it has to be that way, it has to be that way. But it's also kind of like, this is the future we're going into, and it kind of sucks. But I do have hope. I do have hope that Nintendo releases more cartridge sizes for Nintendo Switch 2 games. I do have hope that the game key cards bomb so incredibly badly that game companies are like, all right. We'll take the we'll take the plunge. We'll buy the 64 gigabyte cartridge because it's at points where it's just like, what the hell is happening? Like a Switch 2 game that also releases on Switch 1. You get the Switch 1 game and everything's on the cartridge, and then the Switch 2 game is here and it's a damn game key card. Like, this shit doesn't add up. I hope we end up seeing something happen with these video games that ended up happening with the music industry, where like physical media ended up becoming like a really big thing. I mean, like they're selling vinyl records at like Target and Barnes and Noble now, you know? But for a while there, that was absurd. Like, why would you do that? But eventually, like, physical media became like a really popular thing to buy for consumers with music. And I really hope that as things start to fizzle out with video games, there kind of becomes like a big boom again, and people kind of realize like, oh yeah, physical media is way better. Because I see discussion online all the time. You know, I always see videos pop up. I always see people talk how like, I'm done with streaming. I'm done with digital. Fuck this stuff. I'm going back to physical media. I see people say that all the time, and it seems like when you look at the comment sections, like a lot of people are echoing the same thing. But what I think happens is, one, 90% of people aren't like that, or two, even the people that are saying, fuck the streaming, fuck digital, I'm going physical, aren't really doing that. They might do it for a little bit, but they end up going like, I'm lazy, I'm just gonna go on Netflix. I don't want to buy a DVD and wait for that to come and then pop that in my DVD player. That likely might be happening because, you know, as much as I like physical media, I do that. You know, come on, we all do. So in short, I have hope for the future that things eventually will work itself out. I do think consumers are getting a bit tired of kind of this digital-only streaming Armageddon. It's irritating, especially now that everything's a subscription model. Everything is this ongoing fee. You don't actually own anything. All of these services take content away all the time. And I think even the most casual consumers think that's annoying. I don't think they care overall. I think they'd be like, oh yeah, that sucks. I don't care though. Like, you could tell them it's just like, well, you could buy DVDs and that wouldn't be the case, and they'd probably look at you like you're fucking crazy. So as bleak as things are right now, I do have hope that things eventually will work themselves out. I feel like things are gonna get worse before they get better, but call me an optimist. And you can call me a masochist if I ever buy one of these.